Hi everybody, this is Emily from Local Tasting Tours, the new downtown Halifax food and walking tour featuring delicious tastings from locally owned eateries. And we are featuring Ciboulette Cafe on our tours, and that is the sister cafe right next to Chives Canadian Bistro, which we will be featuring with Ciboulette on our Waterfront to Barrington tour this summer. You can find Ciboulette at 1541 Barrington Street and online at ciboulette.ca. That's Ciboulette. And that is French for chives. And today I'm here with Brady Muller, who is the co-owner of Ciboulette with Chives. So we're doing a tasting of your smoked meat sandwich today. That's right. It's a special smoked meat sandwich, right?
Well, we like to call it the Halifax smoked meat to give it its own home here in Halifax, not Montreal. We do everything in-house. We get our beef brisket locally from a farmer in the valley, and we brine it in-house, and then we smoke it, and then we steam it, and then we make it into a panini on rye bread.
Sounds amazing, and it smells amazing. You've toasted the panini here, and it's obviously a popular choice for lunch. For our guests today, we have Mimi Fotley, who owns The Loop, which is a fantastic yarn shop right next door. And they've even got this really cool seating area that kind of overlooks the yarn shop and is connected to Ciboulette. Hi, Mimi. Thanks so much for being the guest on our tasting today. Mimi, this is a beautiful shop, and you've got all kinds of gorgeous colors and yarns. I was wondering if you had any cool events this summer?
Yeah, well, the summer is a time when we really try to bring in a lot of local products, actually, because it is a time that actually coincides with their availability when farmers are getting yarn back from the mills. And it's also a time when we have a lot of visiting knitters. Knitters like to go to yarn stores wherever they travel, sort of like eaters find the best places to eat. And typically they are looking for something that's locally produced because it makes such a great souvenir to take home with them.
And Mimi, we can find you at theloophalifax.ca. So we might as well get down to our tasting. I hear Mimi has a great appetite, and you often check out the treats next door. Do you, Mimi?
Yes, I do. I was in there eating the edges of brownies this morning. Well, they were still warm. I have a very privileged position here.
Brady, maybe you can just give a little description of the sandwich while Mimi takes a good bite.
We brine it ourselves. It has lots of secret ingredients in the brine, but lots of garlic and spices and a little touch of honey for sweetness. We smoke it over apple wood. It's just put on a locally made rye bread with some good old-fashioned mustard.
And remembering from some smoked meat sandwiches I've had in Montreal, this is a really nice kind of medium thick cut, and you can see some of the layering of fat, although I would say this looks like a fairly lean, is it?
It's all relative. Mimi and I would call this lean. And the brisket, depending on the side you cut from, will vary from a leaner end to a fattier end.
And Mimi, what are some of the tastes you're getting? You took a nice big bite.
The smoke is really, really nice. It's really subtle, so it doesn't have like a barbecue kind of smoke effect. It's really understated, so that you still do get the flavors that are from the brine. That little bit of sweetness does come through, which is really amazing. And that's, I would say, not to give away the secret, but that is something that's a little bit different about it.
Got to mention too that there's a nice big pickle that comes along with that. It's a really good sized sandwich too. Well, thanks everybody for being part of this. And Mimi, just before we sign off, I like to ask my guests a couple of questions. So can you just tell me one of your very favorite locally owned businesses in Halifax or Nova Scotia?
I have many favorites. One of my favorite local shops right now is called Inkwell Boutique, and it's a letterpress studio and a store that specializes in stationery and paper goods. It's really lovely. It's a beautiful store to visit, and unlike any store you're likely to find anywhere, so it's really worth seeing. Yeah, and there's one more local shop, actually, that's very near Inkwell that I mentioned, called Love Me, which specializes in local crafts, and Canadian handmade goods, and there's a little bit of everything in there, something for everyone.
And it's just off Spring Garden Road. And they have these really cool ties that you clip on, sort of for women. It's just an excellent shop. Thanks for mentioning it. And just one last question, Mimi. Do you have a favorite food from your childhood that you can think of?
Well, a lot of the foods that I'm not eating as much of anymore are foods that my grandmother used to make. My Nan was a very rare creature in that she was a really great English cook of English food. So I really miss the roasts that she used to make with crackling. You know, she would make like a pork roast and get this fantastic crackling on it, and you just can't find those cuts of meat anymore that produce that. And, you know, she would make Yorkshire pudding and all those wonderful things, and steamed puddings, which are also very unusual.
I grew up in New Brunswick, and my dad raised pigs for a couple of years, and I totally remember the crackling. Yeah, it's excellent treat. Thanks so much, you two. This is Emily at localtastingtours.com. Please like us on Facebook, join us on Twitter. Take a tour, take a bite out of Halifax.